Hello, hello, hello. Today I'll be talking you through the first 5 days of my Advent Calendar art challenge that I've been doing. I bought this tea themed calendar from T2 and decided it would be a fun idea if I drew something based on each tea that I get. So for day one, we had this really nice green tea that had this like strawberries in it, which made it kind of sweet. I don't know, I just really liked it. And when I thought of what to draw, I was a little not sure of how I wanted to start this off, but then I saw geisha and was like, that's Japanese, and I thought of a fox, so I decided it could be really cool if I combined a fox with the tea and like try and make a design based on that. So as you can see, me sketching it out on screen, I have decided that we're having a little green tea fox, and I put strawberry leaves across its back and its forehead with some strawberry flowers near its ears. I decided not to put the strawberry flowers along the spine, but instead move them towards the leaves near the base of its tail. Because the tea was green, the red of the strawberries would make a really nice accent color. So, like an actual fox, I decided to put the red where the dark brown markings of their fur would be, and did a kind of spotted gradient for the tail, kind of like how strawberry seeds look. Yeah. So I'm just starting to colour in quite blockily now. I decided not to try and render realistically, to save time and to keep myself from burning out, which I have somehow not done. I'm on to day 6 tomorrow, and I'm actually pretty happy with my motivation levels, which is surprising. Never did well at things like Inktober. You can just see me shade the red. I shaded each of these by colour. I didn't use like multiply or hard light layers for any of the base shading. I just colour picked them and just went along like that. Now I am adding kind of like ambient light. It was like a kind of warm, lazy afternoon when I wanted to draw this, so I decided why not make it look like that in the final image. So just now I'm adjusting the shadows from that layer, then adding on warm light to make it look like cozy. And then I added a sun with the number 1, and day 1 has been finished. Oh, and my watermark. But yes. So day 2's tea was called Morning Sunshine, and I immediately thought of the fact that it's summer, and in summer I get woken up at the crack of dawn by magpies in the flowering gum outside my window. The tea itself was a mix of several black teas, including Assam, Darjeeling, and Rwandan estate black teas. I hope I'm pronouncing all those right. And the tea they made was quite dark, so when I think of the magpie, I'm like, I don't really need to change too much about it. I just made it a brown instead of black, and added the flowering gum there, since, well, it's outside my window, and it's just forever associated with them. Thankfully, I haven't been swooped by any of them this year. I have been swooped by some noisy miners, which was not okay, but what can you do when they decide to nest right next to a busy road? But yeah. Flowering gums are one of my favourite trees. When they flower, they have like a really nice kind of magenta, as you can see with me colouring there. I'm just figuring out how I want the sun to look. Again, I chose a sun because it's the morning and it's got sunshine in the name. I'm very creative, but yeah, so just adding in some of that shading to give the dimension. If you're ever doing like kind of hard shading on birds, doing like a kind of speckly pattern like on the top of that wing there is a good way to give like a suggestion of feathers rather than drawing each individual feather. But yes, I believe I am just now, yeah, detailing the gum leaves. I love gum leaves, they're so pretty. They're like a kind of bluish green, but then also green at the same time, like depending on how much sun it's been exposed to. So they're always fun to colour. And once again, the warmer bird and like the cooler kind of green of the gum leaves and flowers really worked nicely. I decided to add some texture to the sun this time and did some swirls. Yes, those leaves at the bottom left, I experimented quite a few times with where I wanted them placed, because I wanted them to make like a kind of circle sort of composition, but I didn't really want them to overlap too much, so my solution in the end was to just erase it. And I've almost finished. I believe I'm just finishing up the highlights. Just some hard light where the sun would hit it. Once again, my watermark. And there's the final piece. I'm actually really happy with that one. For tea 3, we had a fruit tea. It was peach, apple, papaya, and roasted chicory, and I really enjoyed this tea. It was quite sweet. I don't drink my tea with sugar, so if you ever have this tea, it really doesn't need it. It's quite sweet on its own. But whenever I think of like fruit and Australia, because at this point I decided I wanted to draw Australian animals for the challenge. So while the fox isn't native to Australia, we do have a feral fox problem, so it kind of counts. I'm saying it counts. But for day 3 I decided a fruit bat. When I think of Australian animals and fruit, I think of fruit bats, and specifically the little storybook called Stella Luna, which is a children's storybook about a fruit bat. I can't quite remember. All I know is that I really liked the illustrations as a kid. So I combined the peach with the fruit bat, and peach blossoms are very pretty. I forgot that they look kind of like cherry blossoms, which was great fun for me because it meant I could draw them and add their colours to the bat. So I gave like a kind of collar to the bat of the little petals and used its colours for the wings. The wings were fun, particularly the lighter orange bit you can see. I had fun adding light to that. And to continue with the whole pink theme, we went with a more darker cherry kind of wood. And now we're just adding on to shading. Given it's a bat, I decided that it should be at night. So we're going to have some more cooler light instead of the warm light of the suns from the previous illustrations. Yes, these leaves were fun. I do enjoy drawing them. And just now, figuring out the petals, realised I drew the little veins wrong and redid them. But, yes. Adding the little veins to the underside of the wing. It's really just the hard shading at the moment. Yeah. The little light in the mid of the wing is because their membranes are kind of translucent if there's light directly behind them. So I decided I would portray that with the moonlight. And we're adding some detail to the eyes. I always like making eyes extra and kind of sparkly. I'm making some stars and detail for the moon. The stars are just using a watercolour splatter brush in Procreate. Adding that darker shadow. And once again, erasing where the light would hit, and then figuring out how I wanted to portray moonlight. I think there's a couple of me attempts in terms of getting the colours. I think we stick with a more pinkish sort of warmer tone. In the end, yeah. Just to make it contrast a bit with the kind of blue purple and the thing of the blue purple of the moon, and then the final room light, and day 3 was done. I like that one. I do like pink. So for day 4, we had a tea called Singapore Breakfast, which was a really interesting tea. It had rice in it, which I never thought of having rice in tea, so I was a bit apprehensive, but it was actually really, really good. It was really like toasty, and it made me think it would be really nice on like one of those grey, foggy mornings, just sitting down and looking out into the fog. So for today's animal, we have a lyrebird. Lyrebirds are pretty good. I like the fact that they can make chainsaw noises. um, and so to combine with this bird, I combined the coconut and the rice as the two specific kind of things. So the tail of the lyrebird has a whole bunch of rice stalks as well as some palm leaves from, coconut trees. And drew some coconuts and had the bird sitting on a palm leaf as well, just to add to that. Now this tail took a while, and I thought it would be the most annoying thing out of this challenge to draw, but no, that's tomorrow. When I say tomorrow, I mean the next tea, but that's tomorrow's illustration. Actually, no, technically it's today's illustration. Yeah, today's illustration was more annoying, and you'll see that when we get to it, but the stripes were fun. I did like the way they looked with the leaves there, that green. The green worked well, considering they're often like in kind of forested, rainforesty areas hiding around. You'll often see lyrebirds near green anyway. So it kind of felt camouflagey. But yes, these stalks, the rice stalks took a while. But I am really happy with how they turned out, so I am happy that I took the effort to draw each individual grain. Here we have my favourite bit, the background. I'm actually really, really happy with how this background turned out, in terms of making it look foggy and misty. It's just kind of pleasant and chill for all these grey blues. But yeah, now we're just adding on the shading and detailing. Adding onto those feathers. Keeping in mind things like bounce light and where the light's coming from while shading this. And now we're onto the rice. This doesn't look like much is happening at the moment, but it's because I'm adding a tiny highlight to each piece of rice and then going over it with a darker sort of line where the stalk is. And I did that for both sets of stalks. I just added a little more dimension in a somewhat timely manner, because again, I wanted to make sure I could get these done. But yes, detailing those leaves is really fun. I do like making leaves. Foliage is fun. So with the coconut, adding that texture was something I wasn't sure about because I wanted it to look more graphic, but I think it turned out well and it was worth doing. I added some green to the backgrounds to make it kind of more tree-like. The lighting for this one was not nearly as complex, which was nice. It was just a bunch of layered sort of mist to make things recede into the distance, and then adding this harsh room light where the sun hits through the fog. And then we have the number, and our lyrebird is done. So, when I mentioned the tail for day 4, yeah, we have an echidna for today, and the tea came at a really good time. I woke up not feeling that fantastic, and I was like, I'm really hoping that we don't have a tea with lemongrass in it, because I know T2 does that, and lemongrass does not sit well with me. But no, we had this tea, which was tummy tea, and if I read the thing, it says, it's got peppermint, licorice root, fennel, and marigold petals. And when I saw peppermint, I was like, oh, good, I will feel better after this. And I was right. So, we have some peppermint. We're kind of over where the echidna's ear thing is. They don't have sticky out ears. They're football shaped. Anyway, echidnas are great. But these petals took so long. But I think they turned out really nicely, so it was worth it. But they took so long. I don't want to draw another marigold petal for I don't know, maybe a month or so. But, yeah. Instead of giving it spines, it got petals. because I was like, that could be cool. There's no real reason I chose an echidna for this. I just thought that the marigold petals with spikes would be really pretty looking. And I was right. I say as it's currently just an orange blob. In the background you can see the fennel. I looked up fennel and they had these little yellow flowers, so I thought that would be a nice little addition to have in the backdrop. Especially because the green once again would contrast with the much warmer tones of the echidna and the earth. Yeah. I'm happy that I did choose the hot afternoon sky for this. As it's summer now, it's been nice to see those skies again. And decided to make the more of like a red earth from the outback. As you can see, I just experimented with the shades of orange. I wasn't sure if I wanted them to go that dark, but I just did decide in the end that the gradient looked nicer. So here I'm just adding the lighter tip marigold petals have. I did this by taking the shade of orange 2 sort of segments up and putting it on the thing, obviously making some lighter ones for the front, but this kept it cohesive. And then I did the same sort of thing for the shading. I just took it from the petal above it, no, a petal behind, so that the darker shade would once again add that dimension and also look cohesive. Now for the peppermint, I did in bluer shades so that it would stick out more. And there's not really much to say. There's just texturing detail. And a little light green. And then I stuck it behind some of the petals so it looked like it was actually kind of stuck in there and not just copy pasted. Added a kind of rim lighty thing to the... It's not even spines anymore. Kind of looks like an armadillo now I'm looking at it. I mean, I still like how it looks and it still looks like an echidna, but they kind of look more like armadillo scales than the spines they usually have. But like, yeah, I'm just adding some texture to the earth. And just some color variation to the stalks. And then I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to light it, so I ended up just adding some kind of pale blue to the underside and near the back to push those into the distance just a little bit. And that's that day done. So here's our final showdown. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know what your favorite of the 5 was.